सर्वप्रथम धेरै धन्यवाद यहाँहरूको समयको लागि। यो आजको हाम्रो कार्यक्रमलाई झ्याम्याङ गुरुले वार्षिक वित्त रवचन भन्ने नाम दिएको छौँ। यसको मुख्य उद्देश्य विद्वान व्यक्तित्व झ्याम्याङ गोलेज्यूको सम्मान गर्ने र उहाँको कामबाट हामीले प्रेरणा लिएर अझ थप उहाँले जस्तै विद्वताका कामहरू गर्ने प्रयासहरू अझ अगाडि बढोस् भन्ने उद्देश्यले हामीले यो परम्परा सुरु गर्न खोजेको हो। झ्याम्याङ गोले धेरै परिचित नाम होइन, हुन त हामी सबैलाई थाहा छ कि उहाँको कामहरू एकदमै लोकप्रिय थियो भनेर, तर पब्लिकली मेन स्ट्रिममा नआएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि हामी झ्याम्याङ गोलेलाई त्यति साह्रो चिन्दैनौँ। हाम्रो प्रयास के भन्दाखेरि कसरी यो ग्रासरुट्समा अर्ग्यानिक रूपमा रहेका विद्वानहरूलाई उनीहरूको कामलाई कसरी प्रकाशमा ल्याउने भन्ने पनि हाम्रो एउटा उद्देश्य हो। झ्याम्याङ गोले हाम्रो विचारमा चाहिँ उहाँ सामुदायिक स्तरमा आफ्नै प्रयासमा आफ्नै के अरे उहरूबाट सिकेर उहाँले समाजमा कन्ट्रिब्युट गर्नुभएको, नलेज जेनेरेट गर्नु भएको व्यक्तित्व हुनुहुन्थ्यो। झ्याम्याङ लामा 1976 सालमा जन्मनु भएको थियो। काभ्रे जिल्लाको दाप्चा भन्ने गाउँमा लामागाङ भन्ने टोल चाहिँ उहाँको थियो, दाप्चाको त्यो भेगमा। र उहाँको मृत्यु चाहिँ 2059 सालको असार 7 गते 82 वर्षको उमेरमा चाहिँ भएको थियो। झ्याम्याङ गोलेको चाहिँ छोरी 3 जना हुनुहुन्थ्यो, सरस्वती, सीता र गुना। सीता दिदी चाहिँ यहाँ आउनु भएको भन्ने मैले सुनेको थिएँ। उहाँले चाहिँ उहाँसँग मैले सरसल्लाह गरिकन यो काम यो उहाँको बुबाको फोटो लगायतका कुराहरू उहाँसँग लिएको थिएँ। झ्याम्याङ गोलेको बारेमा विस्तृतमा जानकारी हामी चाहनुहुन्छ भने उहाँको स्मृति ग्रन्थ एउटा प्रकाशित भएको थियो 1960 सालमा। यो स्मृति ग्रन्थ चाहिँ लेखक रविन्द्र गावकज्यू र प्रत्येक न्यासुरज्यूले चाहिँ सम्पादन गर्नुभयो। त्यसले गर्दाखेरि म यो पनि यहाँहरूलाई चाहिँ जानकारी गराउन चाहेँ। उहाँ लामा, ताम्बा र अनि गायक पनि हुनुहुन्थ्यो वास्तवमा। उहाँले सुरुको बौद्ध शिक्षा चाहिँ गाउँमै आफ्नै पुर्ख्यौली लामाबाट लिनुभयो। त्यसपछि उहाँले विभिन्न अरू ठाउँहरूबाट सिक्दै तिब्बतको ढाका, विशेष गरी केरोको अलिकति नजिक अलिकति माथि पर्ने ढाका भन्ने चाहिँ निम्न सम्प्रदायको विशेष गरी फुन्चुछुदै भन्ने जुन पद्धति छ बौद्ध चाहिँ के अरे प्रशिक्षणको बौद्ध अभ्यासको, त्यसमा चाहिँ उहाँले लामो समय बसेर अभ्यास गर्नुभएको थियो। अनि उहाँले त्यो भेगमा धेरै नयाँ पुस्ताका लामाहरूलाई चाहिँ उहाँले बौद्ध शिक्षाहरू प्रसार गर्नुभएको थियो। अनि यो बौद्ध शिक्षा मात्रै, बौद्ध विशेष गरी महायानी वज्रयानी परम्परा मात्रै नभइकन उहाँले चाहिँ तामाङ जाम्फला कैलेन भन्ने एउटा किताब पनि नेपाली भाषामा लेख्नु भएको थियो 2022 सालमा है। नेपाली भाषा चाहिँ उहाँले आफ्नै प्रयासमा आफैले गाउँमै सिक्नुभएको थियो। उहाँ तामाङ भाषा, नेपाली भाषा अनि तिब्बती भाषामा चाहिँ पोख्त हुनुहुन्थ्यो। अनि करिब करिब 2 दर्जन जति चाहिँ तामाङ गीतहरू पनि उहाँले सङ्कलन गरिकन 2035 देखि 2059 को अवधिमा चाहिँ सङ्कलन गरेर प्रस्तुत के अरे प्रकाशन गर्नुभएको थियो। र 2012 देखि 2014 सालको अवधिमा उहाँले रेडियो नेपालबाट तामाङ गीत पनि गाउनुभयो। त्यसकारण उहाँको जुन कन्ट्रिब्युसन छ यो वास्तवमा यो नेपालको सांस्कृतिक जुन एउटा फुलबारीमा महत्त्वपूर्ण छ भन्ने मलाई लाग्छ। त्यसै गरी अरू विभिन्न विषयमा उहाँले सामाजिक सेवाहरू गर्नुभएको थियो। यहाँ मैले एकदमै छोटो मात्रै मेरो भेटघाट छ उहाँसँग। त्यही पनि यो ग्रन्थमा मैले सुनेको मैले भेट्दाखेरिको इम्प्रेसन जुन छ त्योहरू मैले लेखेँ। तर एकदमै धेरै झ्याब्याङ बोले पारे थाहा भएको व्यक्तित्व पनि हुनुहुन्छ यहाँ सीताराम तामाङज्यू। उहाँ चाहिँ दाप्चामा चाहिँ जानुहुँदाखेरि त्यहाँ समय कुराकानी धेरै समय व्यतीत गर्नुहुन्थ्यो, प्राज्ञिक छलफलहरू उहाँको हुन्थ्यो। र काठमाडौँ आउनुहुँदाखेरि झ्याब्याङ लामाज्यू चाहिँ उहाँसँगै बस्नुहुन्थ्यो सँगसँगै। त्यसले गर्दाखेरि समय मिल्यो भने उहाँको बारेमा हामी उहाँलाई पनि केही बोल्नको निम्ति भन्छौँ। त्यसकारण हामी झ्याब्याङ लामा जो चाहिँ एउटा अर्ग्यानिक इन्टेलेक्चुअल हो, जसले यो एउटा चाहिँ ज्ञानको कुरा सिक्ने, सिकाउने र फैलाउने काममा चाहिँ योगदान पुर्यायो, उहाँबाट हामी यो प्रेरणा लिन चाहन्छौँ। र यो झ्याब्याङ बोलेको सम्वादमा जुन हामी यो विगत प्रवचनहरू के अरे सञ्चालन गर्नु गएको छौँ, सकेसम्म यो प्रत्येक वर्ष हामी निरन्तर गर्न चाहिँ चाहन्छौँ। यो पनि कन्फ्युजन पनि हुन्छ कि झ्याब्याङ बोले प्रवचन भन्दाखेरि उहाँकै बारेमा मात्रै कुरा गर्ने होला भन्ने पनि एउटा हुन्छ। तर यो नभइकन के भन्दाखेरि उहाँको सम्वादमा हामीले विद्वानहरूले गरेका चाहिँ कामहरू, आफ्नो कामहरू प्रस्तुत गर्ने, उहाँको कामबाट प्रेरणा लिएर नयाँ नयाँ कामहरू स्वीकार गर्ने चाहिँ यसको मकसद हो। यही सिलसिलामा हामीले आज प्रोफेसर डाक्टर बेन क्याम्पेल जो डर्हम युनिभर्सिटीमा चाहिँ पढाउने र अध्ययन अनुसन्धान गर्ने काम गर्नुहुन्छ, उहाँलाई निम्तो गर्यो। र वी आर भेरी ग्रेटफुल दैट यू हैव एक्सेप्टेड आवर इन्भिटेसन फर दिस एनुअल लेक्चर। झ्याब्याङ बोले आम सरी दैट आई स्पोक मोस्टली नेपाली। उहाँ चाहिँ नेपाली, तामाङ र अङ्ग्रेजी तिनटै भाषा चाहिँ बोल्ने हुनाले अब यु डोन्ट माइन्ड मी स्पिकिङ नेपाली। So I was telling a little bit about Jhabang Gule, who was in honor of whom we have organized this annual lecture. So he was a grassroots intellectual, and then he was a lama, tamba, and also an artist. So we wanted to honor him, and we are very happy and we are very glad that you are here. We accepted our invitation. I would like to introduce our distinguished speaker today. Professor Ben Campbell Durham University, he is teaching and doing research there. Today's talk, title of his talk will be Pathways of Learning, Reflections on Transformation in Research with Nama Communities. Professor Ben Campbell will discuss aspects of his research over the last 35 years, okay, and reflect on some of the challenges that face Nama communities in the contemporary world, in which the pressure of global economy and environmental crisis are evident. Okay? How can we approach understanding self-community and resilience in these circumstances? This is the brief abstract that I can share with you about his talk. Dr. Ben Campbell is a professor in the Department of Anthropology in Durham University, UK. He is also a fellow of the Institute of Hazard, Risk and Resilience in the Institute of Hazard, Risk and Resilience at the university. He holds PhD from the University of East Anglia, Development Studies, East Anglia, Development Studies titled The Dynamics of Cooperation, Households and Economy in the Tamang Community of Nepal, and an undergraduate degree in Social Anthropology from Cambridge. Wale research and will hear more from Ben himself. Ben has also served as the director of the Durham Youngest Sustainability, Culture and Development Program since 2022, and is also involved with the Sustainability, Energy and Development Program. He has published and edited volumes, numerous journal articles and book chapters. One of the books just launched was 2 days ago in Social Science Baha. Right? Many of our colleagues have contributed to that book. With this remark, I would like all of you to join me to welcome Professor Ben for his talk.
Yambui Lawa McDonald Berry Mero Ramo Nekiko Pura Lectura China. This is Pune. Your thoughts, your reflections more within you. Tata Pangova. Our Asti Anshin by Charlie Mangalva, Asti Mangalva, UK by the high yeah. Social science Baha Ukari Drum. The sugar bar go book launch. The handbook of the International Handbook of Himalayan Environmental Development and Well-Being. Kitab, Himalayan Handbook of Himalayan Environmental Development and Well-Being. 5 भाषा धेरै च्याप्टरहरू 50 च्याप्टर भारी छ यो handbookमा अनि मेरो विचारमा यो निकालेपछि अब कुनै reflections. Panu sakinsu. मेरो अनुसन्धान नेपालमा पहिला 1989 देखि 1989 जुन PhD को लागि म इस्ट एङ्ग्लिया युनिभर्सिटी अफ इस्ट एङ्ग्लियाको विद्यार्थी मेरो सुपरभाइजर डेभिड सेडन he is Blakey your author of Nepal crisis मेरो supervisor यो बेलामा 1989 म रासुवातिर घुमेर कुन ठाउँमा बस्ने खाजु नाम्सा थिबा खाजु नाम्सा थाम्लोपा नाम्सा गी पेरी tam lolo bangba nukpa sherpa torni bedeng very bugie pangba sepa pangba sherpa yolmo with so many variations different each village has different feeling तर गोलेले माला यो थारे हो टेंगु नामसा लेंग लबला मिजु मिटिनी भाइ मान्छे यो यहाँ म बस्छु म हेर्छु यो तामाङ समाज के बुझाउनु सकिन्छ अनि कसरी यो युनिभर्सिटी अफ इस्ट एङ्ग्लिया डेभलपमेन्ट स्टडिजबाट म एग्रिकल्चर खेती किसान हेर्छु खेती किसान कसरी यो गरिब गाउँमा छ अनि कसरी यो प्रोडक्सन गहुँ मकै कोदो भैँसी गाईहरू भेडा बाख्रा कसले हेर्छ कसले गाड्छ यो पहिलाभन्दा अब आजभोलि धेरै फरक छ भेडा पनि छैन अहिले हेर्दैन तङ्गो रङमा हारे And my big idea, my thought from this handbook coming through, your samaj, samvidan, ke parak unsa. In anthropology, social science, we have had a change, a turn, multi-species turn. Multi-species. के हो नेपाली में के भन्छ multi-species बहुप्रजातिहरू multi-species turn अनि पहिला भन्दा के फरक हुन्छ भेडा हेर्दैन यो पहिला जस्तो कोदो मकै गहुँ आफै बनाएको उब्जाउ अब गर्दैन यो काम गर्ने मान्छे छैन सोबिनी आरे हेर्ची कुवेती हेर्ची मलेसिया हेर्ची काम सोबिनी आरे आयांगुरी पहिला यो intensive agricultural season योदले सक्दैन घर बेग्लै सक्दैन नङलादोबा नङमा फारमा नेपाली फारमा भन्छ परेली भन्छ तामाङहरूले रसोमा नङलाबा आफै rotational exchange labor system आज मेरो गाउँमा मान्छे आउँछ यो फारमा आउँछ नङलाबा भोलि अर्को अर्को फारसी अर्को पनि अर्को अनि यो rotational exchange labor system. That was my first PhD interest, to prove the majority of production was done through indigenous reciprocity system. तर यो बेलामा पनि त्यहाँ रसोमा लाङथाङ राष्ट्रिय निकुञ्ज छ लाङथाङ राष्ट्रिय निकुञ्जले लोकल पिपलसँग राम्रो मिलेको छैन यो राष्ट्रिय निकुञ्जको अफिसरहरू रेन्जर स्काउट लोकल मान्छेसँग रिस्पेक्ट गर्दैन समस्या थियो तर मेरो दोस्रो अनुसन्धान 1997-98 environmental अनुसन्धान and I did comparison Roswell, Chitwan, Mangulubaru, 3 locations comparing conservation governance systems, national park, community-based conservation idea in buffer zone, also in Chitwan. मेरो विषयमा यो multi-species interaction जो ठुलो कुरो हो आजभोलि climate change हावापानी बारे पता नाम सिक्योर बा there are many names, there are many descriptions, there are many labels for climate change, but I think for Tamang communities there's a connection, there's a multi-species understanding which is different, very different from those from people from Kathmandu, from other kinds of relations with the non-human world. And in this book, there's a very interesting chapter from Bhutan. And it uses the concept of mi mayin. In Tsongkha, the language of Bhutan, mi mayin, more than human. And in social sciences, we have often neglected the non-human. We've assumed too much that the humans, the people, are the center of the story, and we've forgotten the dependence of human communities on non-humans. And I've been working in this idea towards thinking about multi-species infrastructures. Why do I say that? Look in the picture on the cover. How is the gas cylinder getting up into the mountains? It's on the back of the mule. This is multi-species infrastructure. And I think there's much we can do by bringing out the relationships with the non-humans, because this is also what do we say? Ecological ethics of care. An ecological ethics of care. And I think that my experience in Rasua has taught me. I studied with the Bombo, had many sessions, hearing stories and trying to explain to me the understandings of the other perspectives of other beings beyond the human that I was able to gather from the Bombo. Okay. Also, because people have gone away, because no longer is village production the primary driving force for the village economy. Instead, people are going to Kuwait, Dubai, Malaysia. So the primary economic interest is moved away from producing subsistence agricultural crops. But something else has happened also. In fact, the very first chapter of this handbook is written by a German called Dietrich Schmidt-Wurth and the Nepali Akash Verma. And they're looking at the forest, the spread of forest cover in Nepal. So when I started my research in 1989, there was still the worry about deforestation, overpopulation, Himalayan dilemma. Now it seems the forest has nearly doubled in 30 years. The forest cover in Nepal, nearly doubled. And people in the village, they have left, abandoned many fields, many marginal fields. Dinacho aso, makai asu, sanga asu, klaji, jungle taji, jungle teno. So agam tobi ni are. So this whole logic of reorganizing the economy to international labor and remittances means the ecology is changing. The multi-species interactions are changing. Now, Banda, Banyan, Doha, Toam, Tumshin. There's an increase in the wildlife that is coming. Is that such a bad thing? You know, I think it's not all a bad thing. There's new kinds of values that are emerging in adapting to the changing circumstances of what is possible in the economy and what people have to do to adapt to climate change. With the climate change, it first hit me in 2009. I visited 2009 in Rasua. And the people I knew from my original research, they said, Ale, lo, nango, fiafula, nimam shijim kraba. We are walking dead. This is finished. The old system of farming is gone. We are dead compared to how we were before. So, in fact, this was more impactful possibly than the insurgency. The fact that the drought is coming so often. Namayu. It used to be, I remember, December time, Magapus, there would be some rains. And the complicated, very interesting organization of cropping in two phases of a biennial system running simultaneously. It was interesting, it was very interesting, complicated and synchronized cropping. So there would always be some grain that would come, some wheat that would come in April, Vaisakh would be ready to eat again. And then with the drought, with no rain in Pagamuk in Pusman, this was finished. The drought was killing off the possibility of that subsistence farming system anymore. So the people are having to do different kinds of things, trying to adjust. Where's Muktoba? I can't see. There was the book written by Brigitte Steinmann, who worked in Cabaret. I think in English, it was a French book, but I think in English I remember she had this phrase, it was a civilization of buffaloes and maize. A civilization of buffaloes and maize. That describes the sort of 1980s pursuit of subsistence farming. And I think now we have something very different. We have different kinds of infrastructures. Roads, mobile phone, mobile IT, energy, bijuli, even gobar gas. I've been doing some work on gobar gas, and I'd like to show a little video in a while. If we can get that link ready. There's a 6-minute video that I've edited down. But I was interested to see the gobar gas because of the work at Durham University, Durham Energy Institute had funded me to seek alternative for using daura for the yak cheese factory at Chandanmari, Shingombo. The national park, Rasikunjale, there's always samasya with the yak cheese factory. So maybe this could be an opportunity. And yes, with climate change also, it seemed to empower the state. Climate change was being used by the national park, by other authorities as well, to kind of emphasize old conflicts between biodiversity and livelihoods in the context of the national park. So climate change comes along, oh, we want to do something like this, we must try and stop livelihoods in the national park. It should not translate like that. It doesn't need to translate like that, but this is what happened in Nepal, this is what happens. So we've got infrastructure, we've got roads, gobar gas. So I'm suggesting pathways of learning. I gave you my title, pathways of learning. Yam. For learning. And my experience in Rasua, also with climate change, is with the impact of drought, Nam Ayun, I saw more attention paid to the Lalu, to the springs where it was often walnut tree, Kadodongo was growing where there was a pool of water, and this was a sacred pool. And there would be at times of Maga Sankriti especially, that was when the Bongo with a Laben would come and do a chanting with the spirit of the water, with the sentience of the water. So this is something which also is coming through in many other writers talking about water and rivers. Rivers are alive, rivers are persons, rivers and water systems are vital, and we've neglected them too much, and we've let them become impure, and we've let them become polluted. And I think we can learn from the attention that I saw in Rasua towards the water spirits. Because one particular time, I followed a young Bongo. He asked me to come, and there was this one place which they say is Menchu, and it can cure your eyes, it can cure various problems. But basically, there were these streams, trickles of water that never dried up. So of course it's a god. They were constant, they were dependable, they didn't dry up. Why wouldn't you worship such a thing? Very interesting. Very interesting relationship with the non-human, more than human, coming into my understanding of what my research was, where it was taking me. I think about your video, YouTube, and Sakan-san. So this is from several years. I was visiting Russia to the cheese factory. It became something I wanted to explore. Here we go. This was in collaboration with an engineer from Newcastle University, Paul Salas, he was here. This is just a 6-minute interview, 6 minutes piece of film, and it shows some of the context of the problems that there are in innovating, in bringing a gobar gas, or some alternative to daura, to biomass energy supply. Okay.
Loro Kandoji. Dimsa itu hari.
Dimsa Hotel.
Dimsa itu hari siapa yang mana? Asal Nebo. Nebo Cina mana? Nebo. Ne. Nebo apa tadi? Nebo yang nama? Ama, malam. Dimsa itu hari.
Dimsa Hotel.
Dimsa itu hari siapa yang mana? Asal Nebo. Nebo Cina mana? Nebo. Nebo apa tadi? Nebo yang nama? Ama, malam. Asal 야구디 하는 거지요?
야구디 애초랑 몰라 전전 말이
듣는 말이 지금 거예요. 아니 야구디가 그거디냐?
Show đi nhiều quá, đi qua là sẽ thấy nhá sẽ nhiều quá, thì đi chán nhiều quá.
So we come again to see the progress in Channel Valley. My feeling is we need to pay somebody to carry it, porter. And we need to make a meeting with the Maila Samiti.
yes.
Maila Samwa. Maila Samwa. Both Samiti, Maila Samwa. And with the lodge keeper. We need community participation.
I think if there are lodges, it can be enough. The wastage from the
Kitchen waste.
kitchen waste, food waste,
Yes.
also this toilet.
You see, I think we need to find some way to pay
To make
the local people.
yes, to carry that
And I think we need to, if we spoke with the women about it, we would say, okay, who would be interested to do this? If we have a minor Samoa,
Yes, Ama Samuha.
Ama Samoa.
There are other cooperatives also that we can engage
Yes.
them into doing this. But then I would say that when we are talking about this, we should also talk about paying them back. Without
Absolutely.
no free service.
Absolutely.
No free service. Because of the conservation program, they are also encouraging income generation activities. And this carrying the dung to the cheese factory would become an important source of
Exactly.
income.
जस्तै जिआरबिसीले जस्तै बेबीले घाँसमा हरेक अजन्त नम्सरी नि गुजिमा पहिला नेदानवा dia gimnazi tadi solar sama aja jadi dia sampai bangga sekarang mau hari ini saya tinggal berapa ini
kanji buku misi adalah cerita ini dan tinggi ini ini yang harus nanti kalau
nang betul straight nang
jadi usia itu salah lalanya kanji Jadi kulti bayi kulti misalnya nado tapi habis ini misalnya nado.
You what? So now we need. So how much have we got? So we need 40 litres.
40 liters. Which is here's 22 and a half.
These are 15.
These are 15.
Each one of these is 15 kilos. Okay, per meter, approximately.
Tidak ada yurtdan da. Digim gibi.
तो सभा हुन्छ
चालेल गोबर पुग्यो भने त चालेल
This was our experiment. Yeah, still going. We wanted to see if the Gobar gas could work at the altitude 3,250 meters. But some say it's too high. Gobar gas is for warmer places. Kala. Chitwan dera unza. Mati chanda mare undena. But the chairman of the Godi Samiti, he's in the interview, maybe it didn't show very well on the subtitle. He explained a series of technological innovations that are conscious to him. That he remembers in the old times there weren't even torches, a battery torch. You had medan raba, just pieces of twigs, of sticks that would light, and you could walk in the night time, like that medan. And then there were a whole variety of new kinds of buckets, metal buckets, for the milking, and other developments, also technology developments. So there's a conscious possibility for innovation. And I think it's the grassroots innovation that a lot of interesting work could come out of. Grassroots innovation. And I think at the moment, examples like this are hard to realize because there is institutional reticence, slowness, hesitation. Oh, Chandanbari is far away. So the decision making is in Kathmandu. It's in Lainchor with the Dairy Development Corporation. They should have ownership of this problem. And the people on the ground, Chandanbari, in the area there, are wanting to innovate, to show they can change with the times and take on a new technology. But in the end, this probably comes down to institutional hesitancies and lack of commitment to change, because there are other kinds of distractions that any organization is going to be drawn to distract from these kinds of possibilities, which are too much at the margin. In fact, the yaks, wherever there are yaks, they don't get the decision makers they deserve. And I think this is being shown. There was a book I looked at, I did a review of Yak on the Move for the ISIMOD organization. And it showed every country where there is yaks, the livelihood of communities who are looking after the yaks, they are marginalized. They are not adequately part of the decision-making process that would look after the welfare of the human-yak connection. This also was one of the chapters in the chapter that I mentioned before from Bhutan, the Mi Mayin, the more than human angle being pursued in the chapter, that people and humans and yaks are intimately connected, and the yak society, the yak relations themselves with the humans, and how the different yaks, there's one who will be the leader and will go on the path, the first, the others will follow. And there's many other respects in which the yak-human relation is something of intimate connection. So again, I must apologize for not having a fully written lecture here. I'm working from notes, but this opportunity to talk in this way, I think is very valuable to me. I've noticed there are other kinds of innovations going on for new kinds of agricultural commodities in the villages. If we move this slide on. Okay, these are our authors. So on this one. So this was from some 25 years ago, I think, when the still was the Godi Mai intensive farming system. And in this context also these are two sisters there, and they're probably talking, the man is the son of the ward chairman, and they had the biggest number of buffaloes in the village. And the human, non-human relation with the buffaloes would be focusing on how he could help the other sisters, the clan sisters. So the buffaloes would be given in dowry. When there would be too many buffaloes for him to personally look after, it would be a question of who the extra buffalo could go to a related clan sister would be as a dowry. So that was another intimate relation. And the next slide after this, okay, this is on the multi-species infrastructure. We talked about the civilization of buffaloes and maize. This one, yeah, that's good. That's good. So here, just showing some of the innovations I've seen in the village where I'm working in Tengu Namsa. And the abandoned fields here, that's given away, that's no longer cultivated. But the old village as was Purano Namsa Kashi, Zanguteno. But the goats are coming back. It's less labor intensive. You can get some useful produce from having the little goats in there, because you just send them out. They come back at the end of the day, and that's a productive adaptation for the labor availability that there is. It makes sense to keep a herd, a flock of 30, 40 goats. That's valuable to do. Here, there was the far right picture, that was Nobu. He's saying that they had tried dry rice. Is it kukara? Dry rice that they had tried, but it hadn't worked. So they're trying, they're seeing what might work. They're having a go. And then these are other examples. This is couscous, there's some makai, there's some buckwheat. What do we call that? Bre. Buckwheat. In Tamil language, bre. Cambre. So people are adapting to smaller scale crop growing, where they can protect from the animals, from the Dungxing, Banda, Banya, Droga, and all this. So there's a constant adaptation going on, and I think this is grassroots innovation at a everyday scale. People are seeing what worked last year, what can be done differently in the next year. So yes, there's new kind of verticality. So verticality was a concept. Verticality was a concept that reflected in the title of my book from 2013, Living Between Juniper and Palm. So juniper, Shukpa Dongbo. Juniper is at the top of the mountain, and the palm tree, Molodungchi, it grows at the bottom. And I based my that analysis in the book on the constant need to go up and down with the seasons. Yatsa, Martsa. Yatsa up in the summertime, Martsa coming down for the winter. New kinds of verticalities are coming in. There are some kinds of crops like kiwi fruit, which I heard being called kibu. Kibu roro. Kiwi fruit. There was chiraito. That was also being tried for some time as an alternative commodity for people to grow and make some money. And then some people have gone for the fish, rainbow trout. But I think it's the cost of the input for the feed, dana, dairy mango. It's so much that people can't afford to buy the trout themselves. It's only for export, not for home consumption. But I'm wondering also about patterns of well-being, and again, how there are changing fashion in food. And I think with the Nepal diaspora, also there are now in the UK, there are shops where there is simbu, you find simbu, kundru, all the classic Nepali foods like this have come to the diaspora. But I'm thinking, why is it that, for instance, when people go on a trek, that they are given some more like kundru for the tourists when they come, experience something different. And what about polo? Polo den braken. Polo tabalongba. Breakaba. So again, who is deciding who sets the menus for the tourist restaurants and hotels? Why can't there be nettle curry there as well? And again, it's a sort of it's been sort of just marginalised. People thought, oh well, they won't want that, will they? Well, there is a curiosity. There's a fashion for all kinds. It's also very good for the gut biome, isn't it? I remember so many in Rasuwa, Jap Sabah, and people would go into the forest. They'd come back with so much spinach, wild spinaches, and this is very good for the gut biome. Keep healthy with it. I think there's many ways which is looked down upon. Oh, that's poor people's food. In fact, it's very, very good for our well-being, our nutrition. So this is leading somewhere. This is leading somewhere, I think. Interesting. Because it's about what I've been writing about from, I had an article published in the European Bulletin of Himalayan Research in 2018 about climate change and in Rasuwa and people's response to climate change. And I think the problem is translating this scientific concept, climate change, into what everyday people can understand. Because people have their own observations. We've talked about the drought. Nam I do. And how to translate scientific information about climate change into terms that are understandable in the village is one thing, but it's also there are ways of knowing, kinds of gyan. Istanya gyan, whatever you call it, local knowledge, tata sheva, tata tsoba. There are now more and more anthropologists, such as myself, who are saying, in fact, a lot of the knowledge that is there in the villages, in places, it's not verbalized. It's non-verbal knowledge, it's tacit knowledge, it's ways of feeling, it's what we call modes of attention. And it doesn't translate into scientific data. That's a problem. You can't simply incorporate into the scientific models of climate change what is intuitively experienced about being in a place. It's wisdom comes in places, is the title of an important book in anthropology. When you're somewhere, when you're in a place, in the mountain, in the forest, on the path, you have a different kind of connection and a mode of attention to what's going on around you. And I think this is something that could, for future research, lead us into important innovations, because I think there are ways of knowledge which need to be gathered in and put in dialogue with the scientific data on climate change. There are things like the flowering of Paramendo, of the movement of insects, the firefly. I can't remember what the firefly is called, but that comes at different seasons now. Unexpected, yes. And I think this is coming to a major point I'd like to make. I think next slide. Okay, so this is just a table of contents from our big Himalayan handbook of environment, development and well-being. And I've written the introduction here. Here's the chapter 13 is the Mimayin, other than humans, in Bhutan, known as light. That's the one I've mentioned to you before. But I think if we go on now, next one, here we are. I end up at the end of my introduction to the handbook by talking about something is described as slow violence. A slow violence which comes from language loss, and from the language loss, the kinds of loss of knowledge about the environment, and the ways of describing the changes in the world, the knowledge of the ecological crisis. There's a slow violence going on. The article, the concept was from this article by the Australian Journal of International Affairs, but it makes a very strong point, and it impacted on me at the time as well. So with the loss of the Tamang language, I hope we don't lose the Tamang language. There are ways of talking in Tamang which are inexpressible in other languages. Certainly not in Nepali. And there are expressions, ways of saying things, which keep coming to make me think, what does that mean? There was one I remember which is kind of, I think, it's a phrase which is used to kind of shake somebody out of having the wrong idea about something. It's like it's about category errors. There's such a poetry in there, and earthy rootedness as well about knowledge of the world, and it says so much in very few words. So I think it's that this loss of knowing by doing, which are not simply knowledge as scientific data, but are parts of what we call in normative, the kind of evaluations, normative concepts. In looking at the change in the village economy and the kinds of animals that are being kept, pastu, beera, ajapoli, erdena. Sometimes I see in articles that there's a characterization of people who look after livestock. Pastu, goat, pasti manchit. Big reko manchigo. Who else would look after, up in the mountains, it's difficult, it's hard. There's something wrong about the people who would do this kind of thing. So there's a disparagement, sort of denigration of the role of somebody who looks after animals. And I think it's unwarranted. I mean, the film that I showed you of the yak keepers milking away, often they have 30 animals. Imagine looking after 30 animals and moving them up and down. But I interviewed, I stayed overnight in one of the godi, Godi. And we spoke with the man and the woman. They were like in their 70s. And their son, they had one son who had gone to Middle East, gone to Gulf. Wasn't going to do it. They had a daughter in Kathmandu, she wasn't going to do it. And then they had another son, I think, who had died. So they don't know what to do, the old people who are in their 70s. They don't know. Talaba. Natsumba ho, kikluba ho. Because there's good money. There's good money in the yak milk. They increased the payment for 1 liter of milk to, I think, something like, I can't remember the exact amount, because it depends on fat content, but they doubled the amount they were paying. So in a way, maybe they should increase the herd even more, because there's good money in there. So they're in it's a difficult it's a kind of whole world of decision making that the next generation is not taking part in. So it is a big problem for ongoing viability, for keeping animals, for keeping a productive village economy going. To an end now. So I think my recommendation is that for Taman community, we have possibilities for doing research together, for seeing what is being noticed, for seeing what is being taken as important, for seeing the connections between problems of the household, the family labour, the children are going away, how can we cope? How do all these things connect together? And this is the kind of area where we need examples. We need examples to see what works and what's being tried, where the innovation is happening, and how we can collectively gather information, gather stories, and bring the language, bring the idioms, bring the vernacular knowledge, which we sometimes take as do every day. We don't realise how it matters until it's gone. So that's my the direction I would like to write this. Thank you for being my experimental audience for these ideas. I hope I'm going to write them up into a coherent lecture and an article. But I think bringing into rediscovering our relations with the non-human is an important job that we have to do. So I think with that, I'll thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much.
Based on indigenous writers like Joe Todd on the Taman books such as Tabakaite, Mundum. That's why I'm quite curious about the use of theoretical framework, if there is anything, because I have heard that when I took part class, the theoretical framework is not necessary for sociological or anthropological study, but I am a student of literature, so I had used some of the theoretical framework for my analysis. So I really like to know if there is any theoretical framework for indigenous studies about Taman people that you have used. And my another curiosity is that I really wanted to know if there was use of any canon, that is dog, in non-human relationship in that village, dog. Because Tibetan Mastiff is known as the very important dog for the protection of the herd in the Himalayan region. So I really wanted to know about the use of any dog for the protection of herd in that village. So my two queries. So thank you.
It's an important question, I think. You're asking about the theoretical foundation for using indigenous knowledge. Yes, it's interesting. There are some approaches to indigenous knowledge which, well, there are many. I mean, I heard some at the conference we were at the Social Science Baja. There were some rather strange presentations there from a kind of mathematics perspective, and I don't think that really worked, to be honest. I think, and I've seen some articles where people have tried to bring in indigenous knowledge as a sort of mythical corpus to apply to everyday needs, and that's kind of awkward. But it's not impossible to do. It's not impossible to do, and I think there's increasing movement to be open to the kinds of understandings that indigenous knowledge will bring. And I'd say there's a more broad openness to. I'm trying to remember the title of one of the other books published by Routledge on. I think it's something like symbiotic indigeneity of the new Himalayas. So I can, if you give me your email, I can send you some examples where people are working with the critical foundation, the theoretical foundation for doing this. On the dog, I think the dogs, yes. I remember there being a dog for the guarding the sheep especially. And it had the collar with the big nails sticking out of it because the chien would come, the leopard. So that was protecting with the collar. And that dog used to go up to the high pastures at Naukunda, on the way to Kozakun. There's an area of Naukunda, which is where the people from the Dunche area would take the Rakin. But that Niggy, he was, yes, a fearsome dog. But I don't think they're keeping any quite like that anymore. When they've given, that's the thing. It's an interesting point you make because it's a connection with other multi-species dependencies that are shifting. If you get rid of the sheep, then that dog is also not so needed for the same role. Interesting point.
I have one question. I have found causes of conflict between this knowledge and core polity. There are two types of configuration of polity and the distribution of resources. These are the two regions due to which there is always conflict between the it is knowledge and center politics, polity. So I want to learn from you that please say some strategies to preserve this knowledge without conflicting with center polity, center government. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Campbell, for your wonderful presentation, and I'm so impressed by some of the idea related to innovative grassroots knowledge and your idea regarding dependence of human community with the non-human community, and the example you have provided that gas cylinder carried by the mule and you happen to solve the certain relationship there. I'm more concerned about since you have done a lot of research in Taman community, so what's your observation about Taman community's relationship with the environment, and what sort of relationship have you figured out since you are more focused on the environmental issues as well? Thank you.
I found in thinking about the Taman relationship with the environment, it's not a singular thing. There's no one single relationship, but a number of perspectives to think about. And I think that's the important message in a way, is to think about, whose voice isn't being heard. And so when I did my environmental research, called Himalayan Biodiversity and Human Interests, when I was a fellowship in the late 1990s, because I went back to the Bombo, and I sat with the Bombo, and he told me many stories and very interesting perspectives. But the Bombo has comparatively speaking, if we think of the different formulation of possible relations with the environment. The shamanic relation is one of seeking some vital connectivity and some sign of often a conflict, or a struggle. Often there's a spirit that's misbehaving or has taken somebody's blood and taken them into a bayou, and the bombo has to find which is the spirit and which bayou they've gone to. So all through a night, one of the sessions with the bombo will be about the journey to find. And so there's a placement there. There's a kind of relation to the environment, which is about vital sources, about a sentient landscape, and that's another important concept to think of. The landscape is alive. The landscape is communicative. It's not the rationalist, secular notion of the landscape as a resource, or which is where the government, maybe this is the point, the previous question, the state policy is towards the environment as a resource and as property. And when I was doing my research around the Langtang Rashtrani Kunza, this was clearly the key the kind of the key foundation for the national park seems to be we're the owners of this land. We are the state, we are the owners. This is state property, this is Nikuza. And the struggle that the various villages had with the buffer zone to get some recognition, to get some, okay, buffer zone, fine, but are we going to be able to, have ownership as well? We take, no chance of that. So there's a kind of absolutism. But it's seen as a relation of property rather than as of vitality. So I think this would be my answer to your question about relationship with the environment, is that they are multiple relationships, and some are perspectival, and others are more configured with, for instance, the idea of the mandala. The mandala and the center, this idea that the center is pure and, in concentric outer circles, distance from that pureness of the sacred center is lost. But from a Taman perspective, that's something that is seen as coming from elsewhere. So when I wrote the chapter for the chapter that's called Heavy Loads of Taman Identity, which was back in the mid-1990s, for the big book that David Gelner and others edited, there was a phrase there that I heard as the song, Yangna Yangumake, Yangna Keromake, Baki Salakena, Tom Tom Rere Chumsong. So, not born in the urban place and space of Kathmandu, not born in Kirong, not belonging to urban spaces, but born in the middle ground, born in between, born in neglected, in the outer, what are seen as the margins, rather than people. When you're in your own Taman village and you have your own centering. So it's about relations of place as well, which come through with vitality and all sorts of, how can we say, I'm trying to think of some of the terms, but there's Wang and there's Yang and there are kinds of wealth and power and blessings and all sorts which emanate from that positionality, which is outside the perspective of the state, which is property and control as its predominant relation to the environment. I think that's really my
सर्वप्रथम त डाक्टर बेन यहाँलाई धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद। धेरै राम्रो कुराहरू सुन्न पाइयो। रसुवा म चाहिँ नुवाकोटको हो, मेरो नाम दिगेन तामाङ। म घुम्न रसुवातिरै जान्छु र मेरो दाजुभाइहरू रसुवातिर नै छ। पङ्बुदिङ अबलिङ दाजु काकालिङ दाजु लेङ टिम रसुवा आइन्छ। रसुवामा यो राष्ट्रिय निकुञ्ज छ र त्यहाँको झाँक्री परम्परा छ। राष्ट्रिय निकुञ्जको पोलिसी र यो झाँक्री जुन हाम्रो आस्था त्यहाँको अभ्यास त्यहाँ चाहिँ त्यो खालको कन्फ्लिक्टलाई कसरी हेर्नुभयो तपाईँहरूले? झाँक्रीहरूले के गर्छ भने हाम्रो गाउँतिर एउटा ठुलो ढुङ्गालाई पनि संरक्षण गरेर राख्ने, खोलामा पनि देउता छ, नेदा छ, सिद्ध छ, अथवा ठुलो रुखलाई पनि संरक्षण गर्नुपर्छ, त्यहाँ देउता छ भनेर झाँक्री परम्परामा चाहिँ त्यो खालको सबै डाँडामा सबै खोल्साहरूमा चाहिँ त्यो खालको प्रकृतिको संरक्षण गर्नको लागि त्यो खालको आस्था र विश्वासहरू हुन्छ। त्यसले गर्दाखेरि मैले जोड्न खोजेको चाहिँ कस्तो अघि हाम्रो नन ह्युमेन र ह्युमेनको कुरा गर्नुभएको थियो। मैले कहाँनिर क्लिकिङ भयो भने यो रसुवामा चाहिँ जनताभन्दा जन्तु ठुलो जुन खालको सरकारको पोलिसी छ, त्यसले गर्दाखेरि जनताभन्दा जन्तु ठुलो जति पनि यो निकुञ्जहरूमा त्यो नीति नियमहरू छ त्यसले चाहिँ यो सरकारले त्यहाँको स्थानीयवासीलाई त्यहाँको प्रकृतिसँग अलग पारेको छ। त्यसले गर्दाखेरि त्यहाँको जनजीवन चाहिँ कष्टकर भएको छ। समष्टिमा भन्न खोजेको चाहिँ मैले के हो भने त्यहाँको स्थानीयवासी भनेको त्यो प्रकृतिको संहारक होइन, दे आर नट डिस्ट्रोयर, बट उनीहरू चाहिँ त्यो संरक्षक हो। र त्यही हिसाबले चाहिँ हामीले हेर्नुपर्छ। त्यहाँको प्रकृतिलाई बचाउने हो भने त्यहाँको जुन आदिवासी ज्ञानहरू छ त्यसलाई नै प्रमोट गर्नुपर्छ। जुन अहिले हाम्रो ग्यास सिलिन्डर त्यो खच्चरले बोकेको कुरा छ, यो चाहिँ आधुनिकताले ल्याएको एउटा विकृति हो। म अहिले यति नै भनौँ र जुन यहाँलाई फेरि पनि धन्यवाद दिँदै फेरि यहाँले कन्टिन्यू कन्भर्सेसनमा जोइन रहनेछु। धन्यवाद।
मेरो नाम तीर्थमान लामा, म पढ्छु। मैले तपाईँलाई त्यो हेर्ने कथामा पनि युट्युबमा हेरेको थिएँ, उर्लामा। I have a question. I have two questions. One is that what could be your message to the global about the global warming and labor migration, which you mentioned there? हजुरले त्यहाँ मेन्सन गर्नुभएको थियो, त्यही भएर सोधेको। Which things make, next question, which things makes you research between the Tarman community and what are their top two survival? Namaskar, धन्यवाद।
That's a big, for an anthropologist, it's very rare for us to give global messages. But I think because I have experience of working with some aspects of development industry, my message is always, what about the community? Have you thought about the community? Have you consulted already with what the community knows? Have you done a research? Don't assume that the local people are ignorant. Give them a chance. There's many times I've heard engineers, physicists talk about places in Africa and Asia, and they say, oh, there's no infrastructure there. And this is what led me to ask questions about places where there's no infrastructure. And I think it's a kind of blindness to the possible value of indigenous knowledge. To get back to the question from the young lady who asked the first time round. I think this is it. This is to see what. Don't assume. But the global message for me: don't assume you can bring and intervene and impose an improvement without consultation and co-design with local communities. So I think that would be my global message: is about co-design, co-production, collaboration.
Dr. Ben, for your wonderful research. Your research has been done in the consultation of the Tamil community in Russia. As you said, the Tamil community, they don't know about the scientific knowledge regarding climate change. How do you find this issue? The next question is, Tamil community or other indigenous peoples who are residing in the grassroots levels, grassroots areas, in the villages, their territories, their land, they are displacing from their territories and land due to landslides, floods, and other unusual, natural disasters due to the cause of, climate change. We have local government, provincial government, and national level government also. What did you find about the practices the local peoples, indigenous peoples, they're applying, about the climate change mitigation or adaptation? Do you find any practices or traditional practices or customary systems practices? We have also, and also, do you recommend any issues? What should the local government should do about the climate change mitigation or adaptation in the benefit of local peoples or indigenous peoples? Do you find any, do you recommend any special, recommendations? That's my question. Thank you.
It's a very interesting area because the climate change, the studies about climate scientists is what interests me, and I think it reveals a lot, rather than just the climate science, studies of the climate. Yeah, it is, okay. There's quite uncontestable knowledge that global warming is happening, but when it comes to the local scale, there we get a lot of uncertainty. So yes, the overall global warming, that seems unambiguous. But what actually happens in different places is another story, and climate science isn't so good at telling particular local stories of what's been happening. Another thing I would mention is that certainly there's a study that I recall of climate modelers in India, and they have such a strong idea of what climate science is that they see there can be no valuable input from non-scientific people. It's a self-contained enclave of knowledge that's sort of impenetrable from the outside. So the idea that there can be no sensible input from lay knowledge into what could be the impacts of climate change it's for me, it's crazy. And it's just too much of a dogmatic scientific response. And I think we need to open up to see many kinds of sciences that are possible. And I think I would include within many kinds of sciences the kinds of indigenous knowledge that we've begun to mention here, because there is certainly an embodied undeniability to the truth of the ways of experiencing environmental change that indigenous people do communicate. Thank you.
Dr. Ben. So my name is Sabnam Lama and I'm a Tamang student, researcher and a leader, and I work a lot around indigenous girls movement, capacity building and identities and how we can connect with each other. So as an indigenous youth, I wonder a lot and I try to find my own position a lot about what does it mean to be a Tamang or an indigenous in my social position. So I think a fun question for you. Working with Tamang community for 35 years, have you reached to the point where you feel like you identify yourself as a Tamang? मेरो प्रश्न चाहिँ उहाँले 35 वर्षसम्म काम गर्नुहुँदा चाहिँ अब आफैलाई नै तामाङ भनेर पहिचान गर्ने स्टेजमा पुगिसक्नु भने के भन्नु होला भनेर, or what does तामाङनेस or तामाङ हुनुको state or identity mean to you?
Yes. So what it means is that I have somebody I could call Nana, Anga, Ani, Ajo, Chili, Ma, Makpa. I have a relational world, and I miss that when I'm not in Nepal, I'm not in Mysore. So this is, something which has benefited me enormously, is to be part of a set of relationships and flows of reciprocity and gifts and love that is really rewarding, really enriching as a human experience. Thank you.
My name is Milan Tama. I'm working as a tourism entrepreneur and a tourism activist. And thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. I got a wonderful time. So I would like to thank you, Mr. Dr. Muktasin Taman, for inviting me. And I thank you, Mr. Campbell. I have just one question. And now in the Nepal, the Tamil youth having hard time. So many Tamil youths are going to abroad. So what did you find out, and what is your unique solution that Tamil youth is stopping in Nepal? So we have a rich culture, history, geography.